Right viewers, welcome back to the DCS World tutorial. This time we're learning the A-10C2's startup in the world. Now this will pretty much be the same procedure if you're flying the older A-10C. You get both in the module. The only difference in the startup is the C lacks the Scorpion gimmicks, which is here. If you're starting the A-10C up, you're viewing like an older server or something, then just skip the turning on the gimmicks or the gimmicks. Let's get started. First things first, we'll turn on the battery inverter. We'll also turn off the head tracking because it's having a stroke. Inverter's on. Let's power up the APU down. So the arm on is this. We'll turn that on and monitor the AP RPM gain, which is here. When that reaches about 100%, we'll turn on the generator power here. Okay, there we go. APU is at 100%. We will now turn the generator and power our systems. Okay, now we will turn on the CD by turning on this switch and this switch. At the same time, we will advance the left throttle. I believe it's the first one to start the A10. So let's advance the first throttle on the left. You can do this by using a detent, or there's obviously the keybind. Let me see what the keybind is. I'm not sure if it has a keybind. Okay, well, you just find the keybind. I'm not sure what it is. I have the A-10C Thrustmaster throttle and stick, so we can just do it this way, I guess. Okay, so we're going to see the engine RPM rising. It's at 40%. It should idle about 50 to 60-ish, I think. Once the engine starts cycle light extinguishes, we will start the right engine. Okay, now let's come down to the CD real quick. We'll go to INS, alter line, and fast. Okay, the light's extinguished. Now let's go and start the right engine the same way. Engine start cycle illuminated, and we'll wait for the right engine to set. Now let's go turn on the CIC, GTRS, and IFCC. I will also turn on the MFDs, set those to day or night, whatever you need. At least day, because it is obviously daytime. Next we will turn on the stability augmentation system, here and here. We'll also turn on the C, and we can't turn that on yet. So let's go turn on the radios then, transmit receive, and transmit receive, so that turns on all three radios in the aircraft. Let's come back up to this panel here. We'll turn on the anti-skid. We will acknowledge the notes, we'll get rid of that, so we have our heading tape. We'll turn on the countermeasures and missile warning system and LWR. We'll set that to semi. All these switches need to be on. Okay, now we have on the CD and also the MFD, if we go to CDU, we have INS nav ready. So with that, we can come over to here, set the INS to nav, and now we can set the HSI to E and stick point. Okay, now, the A-10C, like the JF-17, requires you to upload your DTC, actually weapons. So you'll be on this DTS page by default when you start with the plane. You also need to reload the DTS when you are reloading weapons, so let's go and select load all. And you'll know if it's been done correctly because if you go to the business page, you'll see your weapons shown once it's downloaded. Let's unchange backup API, go to Dismiss. Yeah, that looks like CV105, that's 4 of those, 2 Mavericks, maybe, yeah, okay, that was right. Now let's set the TGP on, taxi lights on. We'll come back here, turn the TAC end to try to receive, Scorpion on, and last but not least, we will turn the IFF on over here. Yep, so the IFF just there, set that to normal, which is there, and turn mode 4 to on. That's what we all really needs mode 4 for DCS to mode 4. Now, finally, let's turn the EPU off by using the same switch as current on, so let's switch that to the off position. Okay, EPU's coming off. Okay, now it's time to turn on the EAC. There we go, EAC is on, and all cautions are extinguished. Now let's get rid of the wheel chocks with ground crew F5, F2.
Chief, remove the wheel chocks.
Copy. Wheel chocks are now removed.
Turn on nose wheel steering, we can see that with the steering engaged, and let's taxi out to the runway. So we're gonna go that way, then past the B1s onto it. And of course, close the canopy. Now, whilst taxiing, it's best to have the flaps in the up position, not lower them on the takeoff, because I guess drag, or whatever, I just lose them up. One more thing you should do is set the altimeter to the electric setting by left clicking it. There we go. The HUD symbology is pretty standard. I guess the only thing is it's pretty low, so you do need to kind of move your head down to see your nose heading, I guess, but it's pretty standard besides that. So just quickly explain some symbology. You have your barometric altimeter there, 1,830 feet. Let's reading from you have your radar altimeter of 10 feet, which is ground, because we're sitting 10 feet off the ground. The 0 underneath the barometric, I believe, your vertical climb or descent rate. Have your master arm status, your sensor point of interest, which is steer point in this case. You have your waypoint, which is 0 initial point, and you have distance to it, so we'll switch to there. So we see we have 47 miles to it. Now it is technically possible in this thing to take off with two heavier aircraft. However, it will be very difficult to, especially on those runways, because well, this thing's meant to operate from shorter runways, which you can't really do on a heavy load. So what I would recommend in that case is just defuel. This plane, I've done missions over like 200 miles and only burnt through like 5,000 pounds. So if you're going like less than 100 miles, you can just take like 7,000. 70% fuel. That's roughly 7,000 pounds. The fuel percentage in this is pretty easy to calculate because your internal fuel is about 11,000 pounds. So the percentage of fuel you have roughly correlates to the actual internal fuel. Because, well, there's not really much of a difference between like 10% or like 10,000, 11,000 percentages. Like, it's pretty similar, I guess. So your percentage roughly correlates to the actual number we'll be reading. Yes, like if I put 70% of fuel in this thing, I'll be looking at about between 7,000 and 8,000 pounds of fuel. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, getting on the runway now, I will put the flaps down by this point. If we come down to here, we turn the IFFCC, and also set the HUD mode, and also the altimeter source, we'll set it to radar. Okay, so getting ready for takeoff, we'll turn off the taxi light. When we line up on the runway, we will turn off the steering. Okay, now let's turn total steering and lower the flaps to the middle position. Okay, now one thing to talk about is if you look at the A-10, the engines are blowing air directly over the horizontal and vertical stabilizers, and which means that compared to other aircraft, you actually get a lot more elevator and rudder authority at lower speeds compared to like an F-16, F-18, well, not really an F-18, like an F-16, F-15, whatever. And that is simply because there is always air blowing over those surfaces. They don't, at least like the rudder and the elevators don't really stall. Of course the wings can still stall because there's not really like air blowing over them all the time. But you don't really ever stall those back control surfaces behind the engine. Very handy. And it helps a lot with taking off, so we'll be using that to our advantage. So we'll hold the brakes and advance the throttles to max. Engine RPM's climbing, okay, and let's go off the brakes. We'll use a mixture of our rudder. So you see now, even at below 50 knots, our rudder is still, our rudder is active below 50 knots. That is crazy. I'm just steering with rudder here. No, I don't need to use no braking at all or nozzle steering. Rotate speed's about 150 knots, so that's when you can take off at least. We'll rotate about now. Looking for about 10 degrees of pitch to get off the ground. Get off the ground, we've got positive rate of climb, as you can see on the fronts and the HUD. Gears coming up, and we'll put flaps in about 170 knots. Okay, flaps are in. We'll build from speed 9. Set the autopilot to climb. Set the autopilot to yeah. Right then, so a good climbing speed is about 200 to 250 knots. That's what I found to be most ideal for maintaining speed and climb rate. About a 4 to 5 degree climb, we're getting just under 2,000 feet per minute, so that's pretty good for an A10. Especially since we are relatively heavy today. So then viewers, that'll be it for today's video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Patreon, TikTok and YouTube. Links are down below as they always are. Have a wonderful weekend coming up. Everyone, signing off.